Hi, this is Jack Downs with a brief video for people who missed class. This is JOU127 Speaking and Writing for Professionals. We missed class on Tuesday the 11th, and some of you may have also missed class on Thursday, November 6th. I know a lot of people are sick, and it's a difficult time during the semester. Let me encourage you all to, yes, watch these videos, but most importantly, as I said in class, is to plan, practice, and complete your presentations. So some of you have not done a few of you may not have finished the introduction presentation. Please ask for help. That's a relatively low impact presentation, and you should be able to get it done quickly. Your informative is a bigger presentation, but still, even if it's not perfect, it's better to get it done. And in any of these cases, it's better to do the presentations and perhaps not do so well in your paperwork, but to get the presentation done. Okay? Then likewise, we are now in the planning process, and we'll soon be in the practice process for the persuasive, which is to be done at the last 2 days of class, presented the last 2 days of class. So please get that done. Also, get in a position to do that, and if you haven't gotten your topic in yet, please do that. Yeah, so that's a lot. It sounds like a lot because it has kind of built up. If you've gotten behind, make sure to ask for help. Either come see me or see the TAs, and just at least go through the instructions, get something together, present in class, and continue. That's the process now. Isn't there an exam coming up? Yes, there is. On Tuesday, we'll have a review session for the exam, and on Thursday, that will be a week from our next class, there will be the exam. But not this Thursday, okay? But we're talking about we're going to be having a regular class on the 13th, then we'll have a review for the exam on the 18th, then the exam will be on the 20th. How are you supposed to get all these now maybe overdue presentations done and prepare for the exam? Well, if you have to choose, get the presentations done. Just get through the exam. The exam is less important. If you get all the presentations done, you can pass this class. Okay, so again, I understand that people have been sick, and that makes everything harder, and then things pile up. But I think for everybody, even if you're behind, you can still get through this class. However, let's take a look at what I did in the last class, on the class Tuesday on the 11th. Yes, we had some presentations, so that took part of the time, and reviewed the schedule and all this stuff I just told you. Also, the previous class, I had gone over this handout, sound reasoning, reasoning fallacies, and persuasion. I reviewed that in class. I actually quickly went through it again. Now let's say you missed class also on Thursday the 6th. You would have received an email from me like this with a link to an old video where I go over this sound reasoning and fallacies and persuasion. If you haven't looked at that yet, please go back to that. In fact, I will actually include a link in this email to that other video too. If you haven't looked at that yet, please look at that. Okay, so we're going to imagine that you have this handout, or the digital version of it if you missed that class also, because I attached it. So you should be looking at this handout as you do this little exercise. This is not a graded exercise. It's not to be handed in. However, I told everybody in class that knowing what these things are and being able to define them, the sound reasoning examples and ways to make logical arguments, then the fallacies, the deceitful or incorrect ways to use logic and reasoning. Knowing what these are and being able to define them will be on the exam. So if you are preparing for the exam and you have an index card, you write these things down on them. But you also have to be able to use them. And the way you would use them would be like this exercise here, which I will send you this as an attachment, and you should review. So here's the way you should do this. You should take a look at this file, which is an attachment, and you should go through it, and for the first 4, you list the type of reasoning used. And then also, if you think that it's not done well, if it's done, it's been done in error, incorrectly, or maybe it was done manipulatively, to be deceitful, to use reasoning in a bad way, then say what the reasoning fallacy is that's being used, if you think there's a fallacy being used. And then for the last 7, they are all fallacies. So just what is the reasoning fallacy that's being used there? Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to pause this video and then go through this, or just go through this and come up with some answers. And then it'll be a good way to test yourself. And then it'll also have to prepare you for the exam. So I'm going to pause here, or you should pause here and then do that and then come back. And of course, I'm going to give you the answers. Okay. Did you really pause and go check it out? Please use this as a review anyway. Okay, here we go. So what are the actual answers here? All SUNY Plattsburgh students love Berkey. Mary is a SUNY Plattsburgh student, therefore Mary must love Berkey too. Okay, that's an example of deductive reasoning. It's also called reasoning from principle. And the idea is that we have a general principle. The general principle is all SUNY Plattsburgh students love Berkey. And then we move to a minor premise. It's usually something that is completely obviously factual. Mary is a student at SUNY Plattsburgh. Good, okay. Then we go to the specific conclusion. Therefore, Mary must love Berkey too. So that is an example of deductive reasoning or reasoning from principle. However, you have to ask yourself, is the general principle correct? Do all SUNY Plattsburgh students love Berkey? I bet you that's not true. So therefore, I would say, really, this is an example of a non sequitur or false principle fallacy. The next one. There can be no doubt that the Great Depression was caused by Herbert Hoover. The stock market crashed just months after he became president. Well, you may not know this history, but it is true that the Great Depression started soon after he became president. However, and this would be an example of causal reasoning, right? It'd be causal reasoning. But if you know the history, you could probably also see that really it was something of a coincidence, because most of the causes for the Great Depression happened before he became president. So these things, if it's just a coincidence that one thing happens and then the next thing happens, then that would be an example of what we call a false cause or a post hoc argument. That's the fallacy, false cause or post hoc. The idea is that just because one thing follows another doesn't mean that one thing causes another. In this example, this would be a poor example. It'd be a good example of the fallacy, probably. And number 3, raising a child is just like raising a pet. Both need food, playtime. So feed them, play with them, and they will turn out fine. Okay, one thing is just like another. Something is just like another. That would be reasoning by analogy or analogical reasoning. Reasoning by analogy. Is this a good analogy? If this is a fallacy, then it would be an invalid analogy. And it probably is. There's probably enough differences between raising a child and raising a puppy that really we can't draw the conclusions between them. So I think that'd probably be an invalid analogy. But there's a lot of similarities too. Anyway, my parents are constantly having problems using their smartphones. I have an older neighbor who has a phone for 5 years and still can't text. I noticed that a local community group is having special classes to teach seniors how to use phones. We can see, therefore, that seniors have serious problems using smartphones. Okay, so we have inductive reasoning here, right? We have a bunch of specific instances or small examples, and we're using them, combining them all together to draw a general conclusion. So the general conclusion is drawn off of these little pieces here. This is kind of like what Sherlock Holmes does. When he has all these little details he sees, he puts them together to jump to a conclusion. But if you jump to a conclusion too quickly, or your evidence isn't good enough, it could be called a hasty generalization. And is this a hasty generalization? I don't know. You could argue one way or the other. and whether that's enough evidence or whether you have a conclusion. But at least those are the principles that are involved. Okay, then we'll move on to the other ones. Facing a deficit, our school must either increase tuition or eliminate all intercollegiate athletics. It has to be one thing or another. That is we call it a false dilemma or an either-or argument, which is a case of a reasoning fallacy. Children who still wear diapers at 5 years old will become fat and lazy, will fail to make friends, get bullied at school, be unable to wear fashionable clothing, experience major depression, drop out of college, default on their student loans, go to jail. I don't know what else would come next. What we have here is a slippery slope argument, right? That one action necessarily causes a whole series of actions is a reasoning fallacy, and it's a dishonest way to use reasoning. I cannot accept Brandon's proposal for cleaner air in dormitories. He cheated on his public speaking test. Well, what does one thing have to do with another, really? This is a distraction argument, a reasoning fallacy. It's a kind which is called, it's an ad hominem, which is an attack on the person, attack on the man, is what it means. So it's a personal attack. Everyone has sex without condoms, so I don't see any reason to wear a condom when I have sex. That's a bandwagon argument. Unlikely one, but still. Everybody's doing it is a bandwagon argument, which is a reasoning fallacy, an incorrect reason to do something. You should not be using that kind of logic in arguments. And it's used deceitfully in all kinds of ways, in advertising and political speech and so on. It is ridiculous to worry about protecting students in crosswalks when innocent rhinos are being slaughtered for their horns in Africa. What does that have to do with it? It's a distraction. It's a red herring. So it's not an attack on a person, which is a distraction. This is just a random stray fact, which is set to set people off in the wrong direction. How about, I had problems and overcame them. My parents did the same. We didn't need mood-altering medications. There's no reason that my kids should use those meds. This is an appeal to tradition. Remember, we have appeals to novelty. Just because it's new, it's the right thing, it's a good thing. And appeals to tradition, that's always the way we've always done it. Those are bad reasons to do something or buy something, or make decisions, and also arguments that we should not be using. You should see what others use in their deceitful arguments. And then we could use the last one, number 7. The Democrats say socialism will solve all our problems. I can show you that it will not. Do the Democrats say that socialism will solve all our problems? I don't think so. So we're creating a straw man. We're creating a false opponent, a more extreme version of our opponent, and arguing against that as opposed to the actual opponent we might have, like in a debate, for instance. That would be a straw man argument. Okay, so having said all of that, that will get you through that idea. That stuff will be on the exam. Then I moved on to the idea of outlining. And we started outlining, and we'll finish it. Hopefully, you'll be in next class, and you can see it there and finish it there. But the outlining idea, whoops, let me get this out of here so I can click on it. There. Here's the idea. We have, on one end, we have something that's general or abstract, and the other end, something that's specific or concrete. And actually, on the exam, I think you'll be given 1 or 2 of these. So you have to arrange these items from general and abstract to specific and concrete. So right now, this is not very useful because I have not rearranged these. This was just my own notes. But imagine that you had these all rearranged, and you had to arrange them properly. So they became what? Clothing is most general, then footwear, then athletic shoes, a type of clothing, a type of footwear, actually, athletic shoes, then a specific kind of shoe. Or the earth, then to the northern hemisphere, then to Europe, then to Ireland. So we arrange things from general to abstract. That's what we do when we outline things. When we create outlines for our presentations or for term papers or for anything else, imagine you're doing an essay or a term paper. You've got all these notes. You need to arrange them in a way where we have the biggest topics, then the subtopics to any of those also. It goes from most general to most abstract. Then we have another big topic, and then we arrange it in the outline as it goes down. So this whole idea of outlining our thoughts, of establishing the order that they go in, of what things are the most general, what things get more specific and concrete, and That creates our outlines for presentations. That's how we create our outlines for all kinds of things that we write and create. And outlining is an important skill. So to help develop that skill, and you'll have to do this on the exam, I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff. And here's the example that we started with in class. This one is on the topic of skin cancer. So I give you these items. They're not arranged in their proper order, right? And they're given random letters here, right? So you have to read through them and then determine how they fit into this outline that's provided. The fact that I've given you the outline, you have a provided outline. Okay, so you can see everything at once. There, okay, good. The provided outline really makes it easier. And also the fact that this is a very short and small outlining example makes it easier too. And as you get more facts in there and try to arrange them, or then if you aren't given the outline and structure to begin with, it gets harder and harder, right? So let's take a look at this one. I'll do this one with you. In class, you'll pick up the handouts for a bunch more of them. I'm not going to put them in the email. There's a bunch of handouts related to this. So I ask you to pick these up in class, next class, and we'll still be in groups and be finishing these so you can see the process. Okay, so the amount of ultraviolet radiation, let me get my handout here. Okay, we'll just read through these quickly here. The amount of ultraviolet radiation you're exposed to depends in part on where you live. Okay, that's an interesting fact, but it doesn't sound like an overall fact. There are several causes of skin cancer. That could be an overall kind of fact. Exposure to ultraviolet radiation from the sun is the most common cause of skin cancer. So if there's several causes of skin cancer, we have the most common cause here. So that's probably subordinate in some way, but so far E looks like the most overall one. Certain health and skin conditions are also contributing causes to development of skin cancer. So we have a couple of different main causes, right? And then the amount of ultraviolet radiation you're exposed to also depends on the time of day you are in the sun. So just think those through. How could those be arranged? It makes the most sense in this structure here. And I think as you think through, of course, ideally what? Why don't you pause for a moment? Why don't you try to do this out yourself? How would you work those out? And then why don't you restart the video? Maybe you'll do that. Maybe you won't. But anyway, we could see that in the eyes, in the first section here, the overall main idea is there are several causes of skin cancer, right? So that would be the E one. And now we have two sub-ideas. This B should be back over to here. But anyway, two sub-ideas. So they're supposed to be somewhat equal, but we know that one of them has two sub-ideas. That's what's going to determine them. So what are those big sub-ideas, right? Certain health and skin conditions are also contributing causes, but it is a subcondition, but it doesn't sound like it's the first one, because I don't think it has any subconditions. But look at this one right, where is it? There are the amount of exposure. Exposure to ultraviolet radiation from the sun is the most common one. This is the most common one. This seems like the biggest one because exposure to ultraviolet radiation has another one and another sub-idea. So this would be D here. Exposure to ultraviolet radiation from the sun is the most common cause of skin cancer. We have two sub-ideas. They actually could probably be switched to either one. They are probably this B, the amount that you receive depends on in part where you live, and then C, the amount of ultraviolet radiation you're exposed to also depends on the time of day you're in the sun. And finally, the last one is this A one, certain health and skin conditions are also contributing. So it's yet a different cause of skin cancer, right? And that's how we would do that arrangement. So this is really something you need to look at and then, brainstorm and think about, try to organize it, and you look at this structure and it will help you. And then there are more of them and more of them, and ones get a little more complicated. The one you have on the exam will be somewhat longer than this, but in class you'll get to see and practice with more than two. Okay, that's kind of where we left off in this class. So I'm going to stop there, and I hope to see you in the next class.